What's Pro Football Focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Ready to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. We're going team by team.
I would be very careful about slinging stone.
Am I going to get sued?
We got legal on this?
I like football season, and all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live here on YouTube, and it is time for Week 11 in the NFL. We're going to go game by game, as we do every single week. We appreciate people who join us live, or if you're listening in podcast land. Can't believe we're already at Week 11, Sam.
Yeah, Week 11.
Yeah, we're already there. And a quick programming note, which doesn't really matter, right? You're all subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast. You're going to get your alerts. But next week, our preview's coming a week early, a day early, actually.
Not a week early, no.
Imagine we just preview next week.
Now?
Sight unseen.
Just knock out the next 8 podcasts today.
So we're going to do our preview show on Wednesday, and then we're going to enjoy Turkey Day and Black Friday with the family and have 0 shows on those 2 days.
0 shows.
And then we'll circle back on the following Monday to review all the Week 12 action. So just make a mental note, next Wednesday, day before Thanksgiving, you'll get your Week 12 NFL preview. But today, we have several NFL games and a super secret game preview coming up later on. We have one extra. We're going to go above and beyond here.
Oh, yes.
We have an extra game preview here
Gotcha.
today, in addition to all the NFL action. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's fire.
All right, let's start. Thursday night football, Cincinnati Bengals at the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens at home, favored by 3.5 against Cincinnati. An absolutely massive game in the AFC North, a rematch from earlier in the season. Bengals were a completely different team back then. However, both teams coming off of disappointing losses on Sunday. Bengals lost to the Houston Texans. Ravens lost to the Browns in a heartbreaker in the fourth quarter. Ravens sitting at 7-3. Bengals at 5-4. So if Cincinnati, who was, I think, favored to win the AFC North coming into the season, if they're going to get back on track, I don't think there's a bigger high-leverage game than this one in the NFL this week when it comes to preseason expectations, what the Bengals are capable of, what the Ravens are capable of. It's probably the biggest Thursday night game of the season.
Yeah, I haven't checked what the the actual in-game playoff leverages are for this week, but a couple of weeks ago, Bengals had a huge one, maybe the biggest leverage game of the season. I think the Buffalo game, or maybe it was the San Francisco one, where if they win, they've got a good shot. If they don't win, they're in real trouble. This feels like that again. That Houston game has kind of set them back and put them right back in that jeopardy again, where if they lose this game, they're really in a hole again. Like, they dug themselves out of that hole with a 4-game win streak and Joe Burrow being back and big games, big wins against San Francisco and against Buffalo. And then you drop the game to Houston. And now if you drop another one to Baltimore, you literally just erase all the good work that you did to crawl out of the hole again. So huge game for them. And the Baltimore Ravens have a chance to sort of take control of that division because Pittsburgh, everyone kind of thinks is fraudulent anyway. Cleveland don't have a quarterback anymore. So if you beat Cincinnati, I mean, the division is there for you.
Yeah, I mean, my initial instinct on this is the non-analytical analysis that I bring to the table. Non-analytical analysis, which is the Bengals don't often have 2 heartbreakers in a row. I was just talking to producer Eli over here. He's all geared up. He's ready for the game tonight. Cincinnati fan.
Yeah.
And other than September, right? They lose back-to-back in September,
okay,
right? Early in the season. But once the season gets going, they don't have 2 heartbreakers in a row. They have heartbreakers, right? They lost to a bad Jets team a couple of years ago. They lose to the Browns, and just look horrible. But they always come back and play their best. The problem here is it's against the Ravens, man.
Right.
It's against one of the best teams in the NFL and a team that we highlighted on Sunday. The Ravens have led for more minutes than any 7-3 team in history, and they've led for as many minutes as most of these 10-0 teams through 10 weeks in history. Like the Ravens have all these records that say they're the best 7-3 team in history, just like the Bills are probably the best 5-5 team in history. It's just a weird football season, that stuff tends to happen.
The chat box has noticed that we have rather unfortunately
might
matching outfits.
I might change.
Okay.
Should I throw my I'm going to change.
Yeah.
Does this look ridiculous? It kind of looks ridiculous.
It does. It does look ridiculous. It's also a little bit concerning how often we do this. Accidentally wear the same color.
I mean, I have like 8 different shirts that I wear. I don't know if people have noticed that, but try to mix it. I only have 8. So
you know where the problems come? The problems come when I stop wearing a rugby jersey.
When you wear a rugby jersey, we don't have this issue.
Every time I stop wearing a rugby jersey, we manage to wear the same color and look dumb.
All right, I'm gonna throw on the hoodie. I'm gonna change this. Do you have enough content to talk about the game for a couple minutes here?
Well, we'll see, won't we? Yeah.
All right. You carry. We got Trey Hendrickson playing hurt.
Well, we got a lot of banged up offensive linemen now.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Hit it. Yeah. So we talked about this coming out of the game on Sunday. A lot of injuries for both sides and important players. Trey Hendrickson with that knee injury getting rolled up on. A lot of offensive linemen being either down or banged up. We had Ronnie Stanley going down, getting hurt. They're already down multiple offensive linemen. Like this is a banged up Thursday night football game.
I'm back. Whole new person.
Smooth.
I've gone with the hoodie. This is the Fro hoodie that I wore during Fro Day.
It is.
Hendrickson had a dislocated knee. I know you're a son of doctors.
Yeah.
That's usually a multi-week injury. No, that's the same thing. Isn't that what Travis Kelce had? The dislocated knee back in week 1.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
And he missed week 1, and he came back like 9 days later. Didn't really look the same, but that feels like probably shouldn't be back in 4 days type of deal, right?
Yeah. Doesn't feel like a thing you want to have when you're a top-tier edge rusher.
Yeah, so either way, that'll be interesting to see what Hendrickson is capable of. Was it dislocated or hyperextended?
Kelsey's was hyperextended.
His was hyperextended. The other part about this game, right, it did feel it's just a weird part of the NFL. I mean, the Houston Texans are legit, right? And we know that the NFL goes through these little cycles. And if you said, I feel like the Texans at this point, the way they've played the last few weeks, you could probably put them up against anybody. But the Bengals were just that team a few weeks ago, right? They pretty much dominated the 49ers.
Last week.
Yeah.
Going into that game, like I was literally saying, I don't know if there's a better team than the Bengals right now.
Right, and then they lose to the Texans.
Right.
But I think the Bengals are still capable there.
Yeah.
But they also didn't have T. Higgins last week, and it didn't seem to matter early on because Joe Burrow's hitting cover 2 shots to Trent Irwin, but having a full complement of receivers in Cincinnati, all that's huge. So it's going to be a great game. I'm leaning Bengals because I don't know how much to lean into last week. The way they had been trending, Joe Burrow being back, he's still one of the hottest quarterbacks in the NFL. I know he had a couple interceptions, a couple turnover-worthy plays the other day, but the way he's been breaking free from pressure, I mean, it's just he's back and playing at a high level. Lamar Jackson's also playing at a high level. It's going to be a great football game.
Yeah, it should be. I definitely think the Bengals will cover. I'm kind of leaning towards them winning the game as well. I think, number one, and this is a very touchy-feely thing, but I think it's probably relevant, it matters more to them. Like, they need this game. They're in big trouble if they don't get it. And number two, I think, even though there's injuries on both sides, I think the Ravens are more banged up heading into this game in some key areas. And, okay, Trey Hendrickson might play. Even if he plays, I'm not sure he's going to be 100%, which might help. But I feel like Baltimore's injuries are going to be a bigger factor in this game than Cincinnati's.
They've played some interesting games through the years. Remember in that 2021 season, it felt like the Bengals' ascent to eventual AFC champions, their ascent included having to prove themselves against the Ravens. And they had some statement games against the Ravens. Haven't really had that as much. Even in the playoffs last year, it was a really close game with Tyler Huntley at quarterback. Obviously, the early season Bengals, they just look completely different with Joe Burrow's calf injury, but they didn't have much of a chance. But But I think this is, even though there's injuries, you're talking about the quarterbacks both playing pretty much at the peak of their powers and everything. So, yeah, it's going to be I just keep raving about how good the game is going to be. But I'm leaning into the Bengals and their playmakers. I got a matchup to watch here, too.
Okay.
And then we'll make our picks. The Bengals have been using Dax Hill as their tight end eraser. And so there'll be a whole bunch of defensive sets where they'll have Dax covering Mark Andrews. They broke up a pass against Andrews in the first matchup. Dax is number 2 in the NFL graded against tight end targets. And so year 2 free safety, they're moving him to cover tight ends. They're putting Mike Hilton at free safety, so they're getting creative on the defensive side of the ball at times. And I think that's an awesome matchup to watch. They did it a bunch last week against Houston and Dalton Schultz. Sometimes it went well. Sometimes, Schultz got the best of Dax, but overall, he's been pretty good at that. So just a matchup to watch if they could take Andrews out of this game and at least get one of those weapons out of the way for the Ravens. Mm-hmm. Ravens are favored by 3.5. Where are you leaning here?
Cincinnati.
Officially Cincinnati?
Yep.
All right. I will also take the Bengals. All right. Am I in the right spot here? Did I click the right thing? There it is. All right. That's Thursday Night Football. You have a game of the week? We'll get to it in a minute. As a parent, you've had to learn so many new skills to provide for your family, how to do copious amounts of laundry, meal plan for even the pickiest eater, and now how to protect your family's financial future. Fabric by Gerber Life provides an easy one-stop shop for your family's financial needs, offering high-quality term life insurance policies plus other financial solutions in one easy online hub. Fabric was designed by parents for parents to get you a high-quality, surprisingly affordable term life insurance policy in less than 10 minutes. Fabric has flexible policies that fit your family and your budget with quality policies like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. Get your personalized quote in just minutes and then apply when it's convenient for you. It's all online and on your schedule. You can go from start to covered in less than 10 minutes with no health exam required. So join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Insurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. All right, what do we have for the game of the week here?
Well, the Discord people, you'll find the link in the description of the show, by the way, for the Discord. Come and hang out. The Discord people have gone with the obvious game of the week, which is the game of the week, the Philadelphia Eagles at the Kansas City Chiefs.
All right, we're jumping right to Monday Night Football here.
Super Bowl rematch.
The Super Bowl rematch. It's on Monday night. Philadelphia Eagles at the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs favored by 2.5. Good for Monday Night Football, because a lot of times it's Sunday Night Football that gets the elite games. But Monday night gets the absolute game of the week, other than there's 2 Sunday night games that we're going to discuss here, by the way, when we get there. But yeah, Chiefs and Eagles both coming off of byes, right? Chiefs in particular, you get the Andy Reid coming off a bye narrative. And not just that.
Do we have the, what's the number now? Because, that was a stat for ages, right? And then he never lost, and then he lost a game, and now I have no idea what the number is.
So they lost the Super Bowl in 2020, because we're counting those, right?
I don't know. Do they count?
And then they won the Super Bowl last year coming off a bye, and won the divisional round coming off the bye, and probably won their regular season game coming off a bye. So it's still probably pretty good.
I'm sure it's pretty good, but I just don't know what the current statistic is, whereas before it was like,
somebody dig that up. Somebody dig that up, please. What I'm interested in is this Kansas City offense that is they're averaging 23 points a game. I know they left a touchdown or 2 on the table, but it's still the worst offense they've had in 2 years. It's been inconsistent. The defense has played better than the offense. First time in probably Patrick Mahomes' career where you could officially say that's how the Chiefs are constructed right now through halfway through the season. What kind of new wrinkles does this Chiefs offense have? What are they featuring different players? Or do we see more Rashee Rice? Do we see a QB sneak for the first time in 5 years? Like, what new things are we going to see? Remember, in the Super Bowl, they were breaking out Kadarius Toney, reverse motions, right, that led to 2 easy touchdown passes as part of their big comeback. They had those wrinkles dialed up, and they have time to do that. So what are you looking at here?
In the chat, Justin Gibbons says that Andy Reid is 22-3 after a bye.
Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. So it's two offenses that sort of are emblematic of this season where defense is winning and offense is down. Everything, so the Eagles all season, it's like something hasn't quite been right. They haven't quite been firing on all cylinders. Jalen Hurts is playing well, but I don't think playing as well as he did last season. And then they dig themselves out of these holes by every now and again just going ham with A.J. Brown, just heaving the ball to him several times, and then he catches him, goes for $150, and it's like, there we go, they won. And then Kansas City, it's like even the Chiefs talk about the offense hasn't been right. We're going to get it figured out. Don't worry, we'll get there in the end. But it hasn't happened yet. So I'm curious to see if that continues generally as a trend, like both these offenses still keep not struggling, but not quite being where we think they can get to. Kansas City's has been a bigger problem, I think, but it's been offset by the fact that defense has been so spectacular. And do they have any answers for Philadelphia's offense, particularly, the shove play? Ironically, you got a team that won't stop brotherly shoving and another team that literally won't put their quarterback under center for a sneak because he got hurt one time doing it.
The thing about the Eagles against I'm still going to call the Chiefs a high-powered offense, right? Their struggles are still, other teams' great seasons when it comes to offense. The Chiefs are still a high-powered, capable offense. And the Eagles always seem to have that advantage where I talked about it in the Miami game, where they could have those service academy drives. They could have those 18-play, 88-yard drives. And that the Eagles, much like they did against Dallas 2 weeks ago when we last saw them, when they played Dallas, the very first drive, it's like brotherly shove in our own territory, brotherly shove at the 40, 4th and 3, we're going to go for it and convert and score a touchdown. The Eagles are going to play that aggressive style that is needed as an underdog. And they do it as favorites, but this is as an underdog in Kansas City against an Andy Reid team coming off a bye. So again, the Eagles have the right mix. In addition to just being good, they have the ability to steal possessions, shorten that game for the Kansas City offense, because I don't care how they're playing. They can still be scary and explosive with Mahomes under center, with Travis Kelce. Valdez-Scantling is still capable of getting behind the defense, even though Mahomes' passing numbers beyond 20 yards are atrocious this year. So that's where I think the Eagles can win potentially here. In addition to, as great as Kansas City's defense has been, their weakness has been run defense when it comes to, they'll give up some explosive plays. They'll give up those 4 and 5 yard carries that add up to those service academy type drives that shorten the game. And I think that's in Philadelphia's favor.
Does Kansas City need to lean into running the ball more? Like
I was thinking that, yeah.
One of the ways of countering the way that defenses are taking away explosive plays is obviously to run the ball more into these lighter boxes, et cetera, et cetera. Kansas City actually runs the ball pretty well and typically has all the way along since they overhauled their offensive line. It's a really strong group, but they don't they're still a very pass-happy offense, which you should be and would expect to be with Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback. Do they actually need to lean into that more and say, hey, whilst we're, not struggling, whilst we're not quite doing what we should do as a passing offense, let's run the ball a bit more?
Yes, I think they should. I'll tell you what's interesting here, though. When in the preseason, remember we heard that the Chiefs might have their best tackle duo in the NFL, in the Mahomes era. And at first I was like, wait, there's no way. Because Eric Fisher was good. Mitchell Schwartz was elite.
Right.
And Jawan Taylor, who just made a ton of money to play right tackle, Donovan Smith comes in. They're both good, not great. And the reason why Jawan Taylor's grades were lower than, say, the money that he made was because of his run blocking grade over the last couple of years. And if you look at the Chiefs last year, the last 2 years have been the best offensive lines the Chiefs have had. Last year in particular, and they were outstanding in the run game. And this year, their run blocking grade is way down. And you know where it is? It's at tackle. It's the 2 new tackles. It's Jawan Taylor and it's Donovan Smith. And I'm not saying that's making or breaking the run game or anything, but I think they took a noticeable decline in their tackle play this year versus the last couple of years in Kansas City. It's also fake to say that they didn't have a good offensive line in 2020 when they went to the Super Bowl. They just went to the Super Bowl with injuries on the offensive line, and they got wrecked. They had a good offensive line then. I don't think this line is the same as it was last year. I don't think they have faith in their run game like they could have last year. There was points in last year. If they wanted to run the ball, they could. This year, I don't think they can as much, but I still think they should try. I still think it can be a better part of their game. I love the way Isaiah Pacheco runs. He runs hard, and I keep coming back to when you have a defense that has to cover different or tackle different types of players, when you have to deal with Pacheco's power and Mahomes scrambling and try to cover Travis Kelce and Valdez-Scantling's deep threat and Sky Moore and Rashee Rice after the catch, that's a lot of different things to account for. So I think leaning into the power aspect of Pacheco wouldn't be a bad idea to just take a little pressure off that pass game.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as you say, they just need to lean in that direction just a little bit. But I agree, their tackles are down versus where they've been previously, certainly when it comes to run blocking, potentially when it comes to pass protection as well, to be honest. But I still think that's a good offensive line that can run the ball, particularly when teamed with Pacheco. They're averaging a decent amount on the ground. They are not good in yards before contact on average, but they're not catastrophic either. And if your passing game is not where you want it to be, let's run the ball a bit more. Also, by the way, that pass rush that you're coming up against this week, maybe run the ball a bit more.
In the Super Bowl matchup, too, remember Jalen Hurts played an unbelievable game.
Yeah, other than the fumble.
Yeah, other than the fumble. There was a fumble, defensive touchdown in there. Hurts was pristine in that game. There were big plays by A.J. Brown. That's what I think the Eagles need. If they're going to, again, they're underdogs by 2.5. If they're going to pull the upset, Hurts has to make plays with his legs, got to make those plays down the field. And I think you have to let your stars shine. You have to let A.J. Brown shine, Devontae Smith on the outside. You got to let those guys make plays. Remember, the Eagles are also without Dallas Goedert, who's going to be injured. He does bring a really good middle of the field component. And even though the Chiefs' corners, Jalen Watson, L'Jarius Sneed, they're feisty. They're challenged a lot in man coverage. The Eagles should be able to have success against those guys on the outside.
Yeah, and Trent McDuffie as well.
McDuffie's been outstanding too.
Right, McDuffie's been their best corner this year.
Just mostly in the slot. I was more highlighting the outside guys.
And McDuffie's been interesting because he's been playing extremely well since he came into the NFL. Right, he's not had a down. He hasn't had the highs that Sauce Gardner's hit, but his consistency has been extremely high all the way along. And right from the outset, the Chiefs were trusting him with extremely difficult assignments. In his rookie season, they were giving him really tough one-on-one matchups on the outside and saying, go make plays. This year, his role has changed a bit, but he's still playing at a really high level. So, he might be their best corner if they can get him matched up as much as possible on A.J. Brown, even though, that's one of those. It's not Emmanuel Forbes, but McDuffie is 5'10", 190 or whatever against A.J. Brown. That doesn't feel like a great matchup, but it might be their best bet.
As I've talked through this matchup, I think I'm kind of leaning Philly here. The one last thing, too, when we talked about the thing is, I think Kansas City's offense fits well against this Eagles defense. I also said the same thing about Miami, though. And they did struggle to move the ball against Miami outside of that first drive. But the Kansas City offense, the underneath stuff that they like to run, should fit well against this Eagles defense. The thing, remember in the Super Bowl, we thought that the Eagles pass rush would be an issue. That matchup was supposed to be the best one, and the Eagles kept losing their footing, and they got no pressure on Mahomes. I don't know if it was just the field or if they really just got beaten, but the field was an issue. I think the Eagles might be able to get a little bit more pressure, and collapse the pocket a little bit more on Mahomes.
I don't know if he's been carrying an injury, but Chris Jones has been a non-factor the last couple of weeks. This is the type of game that Chris Jones typically decides to show up for and take over.
Yeah.
If he's not capable of doing that, or if he doesn't do that, that's a huge thing in Philadelphia's favor. Kansas City needs Chris Jones to show up and get 7 pressures again rather than 2 and a non-factor in the game.
Elite matchup. I love it. I like the way the Eagles are playing, the way they're trending. I think they have what it takes to win games in any type of style. Going up against the Chiefs, coming off the bye, I think they'll have some new wrinkles on offense. They know they've got improvements to be made, and they have stars. So, Chiefs by 2.5. Where are you going?
But the bye. Andy Reid's bye streak.
You're just going with the bye.
Let's see. Kansas City by 2.5. I'm also leaning Philadelphia at least to cover that.
All right. I'm going to take Philly. We're both taking Philly. I have an update on our records.
You run the numbers?
Yes. For those asking.
Are either one of us beating your child?
I didn't add up Harry's because, again, he's had a lot of missing weeks.
Had some suspensions.
Yes. I'll add up Harry's, but I think his percentage is probably closer to 50, and we're not. So I called Push's losses.
Okay.
And we've had 4 or 5 of those throughout the season. But I am 68 and 81, 45.6%.
Okay.
Win
It's not
rate.
great. That sounds like it's still better than me.
And you're 71 and 78.
Oh.
So you're 3 games better than me.
Okay.
I sent you this last night. Did you not see it?
No.
Okay. You're 71 and 78, 3 games better than me, 47.7%. 477 winning percentage here, which against the spread, I mean, you're expected to be around 50.
Yeah.
So I needed to be like 56 to actually, make something.
Right. No, it's not good. But it is better than last year where you were historically terrible.
I need to see, because 68 wins here in Week 11, heading into Week 11, that might be my season total from last year, including the playoffs.
Yes. For anyone new to this, you were 10 games worse than if we inversed the pick rate of the best picker that was being tracked by PickWatch, you were 10 games worse than that. So, you had the most powerful betting edge known to man last year, had people simply faded everything you said.
There's no need. Through different styles, too. I used Harry's picks one week, and I flipped a coin one week. Did a lot of weird stuff. But there's no need to bring that up. Everybody has a bad year.
I just feel like it's relevant context to the current, state of things.
One thing I do want to bring up is our Prize Picks lineup, PFF Prize Picks lineup for Thursday Night Football. I mentioned this on yesterday's show, but for those who want to hear it again, we've got a few players in our lineup for tonight's game, Bengals and Ravens. We're going Keaton Mitchell, the Ravens running back, going more than 35.5 rushing yards. We've got Lamar Jackson going more than 44.5 rushing yards. So we're expecting, again, a big rushing effort here from the Ravens. And then we have the great Evan McPherson, the Bengals kicker, going more than 1.5 field goals made. That is the PFF Prize Picks lineup for the week.
The great Evan McPherson.
The great Evan McPherson, yeah. Dude's a baller. He's going more than 1.5 field goals made. We know that's going to happen. And now with basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, you can go LeBron James plus Travis Kelce, a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made plus receptions. If you want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz, you could do that now. Community Plays under the Promos tab. That's where you go in the app to view the entries for some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community every single week. Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and doesn't return in the second half, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. So go to prizepicks.com/PFFNFL and use code PFFNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/PFFNFL. Use code PFFNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, man, let's go through the rest of the games. Ready? Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns. First of the 1 o'clock games here. Browns are favored by 1 despite Deshaun Watson, as we mentioned yesterday. Full breakdown yesterday for about 30 minutes. Deshaun Watson officially out for the season, having season-ending surgery because he broke his shoulder.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen often.
Fascinating line movement. It was apparently Cleveland favored by 4.5 when Deshaun Watson was supposed to be the quarterback, and then it became 2.5 when PJ was the assumed starter in lieu of Deshaun Watson, and then it's moved down to 1. It was 1.5 and then 1 with DTR as the announced starter, I think, for the Cleveland Browns. So doesn't matter what quarterback apparently the Browns they're playing. They're going to be favored whatever, but that's how much the line is moving, 3.5 points from Deshaun Watson to DTR. And, it shows how much faith I think everybody has in this Browns defense. Like, they don't need any quarterback, and they're still seen as a better team than Pittsburgh, even though Pittsburgh are 6-3.
Remember in the first matchup, was it 2 defensive touchdowns for the Steelers in that game? I mean, it took a strip sack of Deshaun Watson at the end that turned into a touchdown. Yeah, I think it was 2 defensive touchdowns for the Steelers to win 26-22. The only real big play was, you remember this was early in the season where the Steelers would literally have just like one big 70-yard play per game. That happened in 2 out of their first 3 games. They were doing nothing other than, Pickett would hit a bomb to Calvin Austin or George Pickens for 70-plus yards and a touchdown. That was what this game was back in week 2. And things have changed a little bit for the Steelers. Their running attack has been much better these last couple weeks. They've officially declared Jaylen Warren as the starting running back for whatever that's worth. I mean, you're always going to have split carries in the whole deal, but Jaylen Warren, who's added some juice to the running game, has certainly helped Pittsburgh. But the Steelers are, football's weird, man. We're sitting here in week 11, and all the underlying metrics for the Bills say that they're great. All the underlying metrics for the Steelers say that they're terrible, but the Steelers are 6-3. Go figure. And the Bills are 5-5. So the question is, is this coaching? Is this, you told me don't use the word luck. Is this unlikely that the Steelers are here, or can they keep this going as a 6-3 team?
I mean, I think Mike Tomlin has been doing this for too long for this to simply be like the Steelers have gotten insanely lucky for 9 games, and they're going to turn back into a pumpkin at some stage. Like, we know Mike Tomlin is capable of getting more out of what it looks like should be there on a fairly consistent basis. I mean, the man didn't have a losing season with a terrible slew of quarterbacks. He managed to get one when he had to go to Duck Hodges. Like, this is who he is. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not vulnerable and can be beaten by teams. The real question to me is, DTR becomes the story of this game, right? We know the Browns' defense is amazing. We know Pittsburgh is sort of capable of getting these games, but probably isn't going to be overwhelming. So it's really, what version of DTR are we going to get? As a college quarterback, I didn't like him at all, and then he looked really good in preseason. They gave him a start, and it was awful. Now, if he goes out there and has 5 turnover-worthy plays again, the Browns are screwed.
Yeah, we did theorize yesterday maybe DTR is a better choice given what we saw from PJ Walker. Just with the full week of practice and the whole thing.
Maybe,
so.
But I mean,
but yeah, then nothing's guaranteed.
There's very little evidence to say that's the case either. Like the last time we saw him starting, albeit against Baltimore, which is, Baltimore made Baker Mayfield, when he was having a good season, or before he had a good season, look like he was non-viable and had no business starting because they hit him right at the start of the season. So it's a bad defense to start against, but 0 big-time throws, 5 turnover-worthy plays, an absolute disaster, 3.4 yards per attempt, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions for DTR in his first start. If it looks anything like that, it's very difficult to see how the Browns can win the game. If DTR looks anything like his preseason game, now we're going somewhere.
Yeah, my concern with DTR having success against Pittsburgh, and we'll figure out how to use these numbers, right? A lot of times when we talk about underlying metrics, we talk about the things that are most consistent, right? The things that you can bank on. One of the things that tends to fluctuate is red zone success, offense or defense. So remember that time Tennessee, they were the team that was always confusing us. How does Tennessee win all the time, right? They don't have a great defense. They don't have a great offense. Nothing's great about Tennessee. They just always score in the red zone, always score touchdowns when they get inside the 10 in particular. Well, Pittsburgh's red zone defense has been incredible this year. And even though every coach that coaches football at every single level emphasizes the red zone, it doesn't mean you're going to be good in the red zone. And when you are, it tends to be cyclical. So this year, Pittsburgh got the 4th best red zone defense out of preventing touchdowns, 15% better than they were last year, right? So what did they figure out? Can they keep that going? I will say, if they're just playing better in the red zone, Pittsburgh, the rookie quarterback, DTR, coming in there as the windows tighten and everything, that could be a challenge, unless he taps into his running ability a little bit. And I think that's where the Browns, if they're going to get the most out of a DTR, using him as a runner, where they've had this inconsistent running game. Kareem Hunt has run pretty well, but it's not the same thing without Nick Chubb. DTR as a runner, especially when they get into the red zone. I think when we wake up Sunday morning and talking about this game at 7 a.m., we're going to say, did the Browns score when they got into the red zone? And if they did, they have a chance to win this game. If they didn't, we're talking about Pittsburgh being 7-3 again, despite all the metrics, maybe even being outgained again for the 11th straight game, 9th, 10th straight game.
Yeah, and even just being able to run the ball, period. I mean, that was one of the features of that game where DTR started against Baltimore. They didn't have, number one, DTR didn't feature as a runner, right? He had a couple of scrambles, but it wasn't part of the design run game. Number two, they didn't really have a design run game. Like, they didn't have much of a success on the ground. They gained under 100 yards. They had 22 carries, whatever it was.
They have to install something for him, I think.
Yeah, and they need to be able, like, this is one of those situations where if they can run the ball, it would be a huge advantage, and he can be part of that. Like, he can be part of that solution rather than just they need a run game to help him and prop him up. Like, if they can manufacture a run game with him as a significant part of it, now you might actually have some throws that will be open and for him to be able to move the ball.
All right, one last thing. The Steelers have installed Broderick Jones, the rookie, at right tackle over these last couple weeks. That has coincided with a better run game. It has not necessarily showed up in Broderick Jones' grade. I don't think his grade is horrendous or anything. And I will say...
And Steelers fans are mad about that.
Steelers fans are mad. I just want to address it really quick, what we've seen. And you could, I mean, if you just look at the plays on the internet, two of the big Steelers runs came on plays where Broderick Jones had a really bad block. You know, the one in the Titans game on Thursday Night Football, we were all complimenting Jaylen Warren for avoiding the defender that moved Broderick Jones 5 yards into the backfield. He had to juke him and then got it to the outside for a 20-plus yard gain. There was a similar play on Sunday where Jaylen Warren, just unbelievable start-stop and acceleration, and Jones kind of whiffed on a backside block and still became a 20-yard gain. On the other hand, Jones has done a great job on other plays, getting to the second level, and making some big blocks on plays that were big gains. He's also kind of been at the forefront on a lot of the plays that have gone 2 or 3 yards. All that stuff shows up in the grading. So play-by-play, Broderick Jones' grade isn't great, but I see the explosiveness. I see his ability to get to lock onto defenders at space. I see him losing at the point of attack a little bit more, losing on pulls every now and again when they put him out there. So it's just been a little inconsistent. And sometimes, even though over time run blocking is a bigger driver of running success than the running backs, the Steelers' running backs are running well. Both Najee, too, last week. They're running well these last few weeks. So it's not just like, hey, we put this guy in the lineup, therefore he's the only reason. It's not necessarily the case.
We get a rematch of DeJuan Jones versus TJ Watt, which should be pretty fun.
Is DeJuan hurt?
I think he's still playing, isn't he?
I don't know.
Let's find
Our
out.
depth chart has James Hudson in, so I don't know if that's based off Jones being questionable or not. It was a great matchup the first time. We also get a rematch of
remains out as of Wednesday.
Okay, so we have Myles Garrett against Dan Moore, though, on the other side. This is a rematch of when we said Myles Garrett had a great game and TJ Watt had all the stats.
Always goes badly for Dan Moore.
Yeah.
Always. Dan Moore's, I ran those numbers after that game, actually. Dan Moore's grade pass blocking against anybody not named Myles Garrett is like 66 for his career. It's above average. Dan Moore's grade when blocking Myles Garrett in his career is 18, I think.
He's Aaron Donalding him.
Yes.
This is Seattle Seahawks guards through the years.
Right. It is.
Seahawks guards in non-Aaron Donald games were solid.
Right. It is a catastrophe when he has to block Myles Garrett. And it doesn't always result. So the interesting thing there is it doesn't always result in pressure because the Steelers know Myles Garrett is going to win against Dan Moore and get the ball out quickly, but he always absolutely annihilates him. So, yeah, it's one of the most one-sided one-on-one matchups in the NFL that occurs on a regular basis.
All right, man. A lot of stuff we just talked about there for this game.
So DeJuan Jones did not practice as of yesterday. Probably won't play.
All right, so it might be James Hudson. And that's
also not good.
Yeah, not good for the Browns, good for the Steelers in that TJ Watt matchup. You know TJ Watt will get a sack or two, especially with a rookie quarterback.
Well, now he's got to show. Like, if this goes to form the way it goes during their careers, this is the game where Myles Garrett will have like 1 million wins against Dan Moore.
Yeah, but DTR is going to hold the ball 4 seconds.
Right, but won't actually get a sack somehow. And then the other way, TJ Watt will get like 6 wins, but 3 of them will be sacks.
Yes. And Wednesday we're explaining the grade. Here we go. I'll take the Steelers as 1-point underdogs here.
Yeah, you can. I can't buy into DTR as a favorite. I can't do it.
Not trusting him.
Not after the one game we saw him start. right? If this was just preseason, if we had no regular season information on DTR, I might be convinced. But I saw that Ravens game and therefore cannot bet into the man as a favorite.
I think it's fair. Let's go Tennessee Titans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jags favored by 7 against the Titans. Jags coming off of thrashing at the hands of the 49ers.
Thrashing.
Yeah. Titans got beat up pretty bad themselves against the Bucs last week, 20-6. So Jags by 7. Will Levis's 4th NFL start here. Remember, he threw 4 touchdowns in his debut against the Atlanta Falcons and has not been nearly as good since. I thought he was encouraging against the Steelers on Thursday Night Football and then threw the ball to the defense about 4 times in the fourth quarter. But the last, say, 5 quarters of play from Will Levis have not been great.
No, they haven't. I still think there have been encouraging signs there, but I think the problem is that offensive line is miserable. It has the worst PFF pass blocking efficiency in the NFL. Like, it's dead last. It's worse than the Jets. It's worse than the Giants. It's worse than the Panthers. The Titans are still bottom of that metric. And that's like, there's only so much you can do. I think Will Levis actually displayed some pretty useful movement within the pocket, some ability to play under pressure, but that line is giving up so much pressure that it's in the category of this isn't workable, really.
It could be a challenging week, though. We're talking about, look, I know the Jags got thrashed last week. The pass defense did not look good. They've had a pretty good season in the back 7. I was hyping up their linebackers last week and how well they had played in coverage, run defense, but their linebackers have played well. Their corners, Darius Williams, Tyson Campbell, Andre Sisco's been a ball hawk. The back 7 has been very good in Jacksonville, despite last week's game. And then you have Will Levis with his 6 turnover-worthy plays over the last 2 weeks. It's just a challenging week to get back on track here.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I think the Jags, the bottom line is, do the Jags have a good enough pass defense and pass rush to cause real problems for that Tennessee offensive line? I think the answer is unquestionably yes. Josh Allen on his own is probably going to be an issue in the game. I think this is the sort of game where Trayvon Walker can have an impact. They have enough bodies up front to make that a problem. Will Levis is currently under pressure this season, 46.6% of his dropbacks. That's not all on the offensive line, but it's the number that's important. We should actually find a data-driven tipping point to this. I always use the number 45. If the number of
percent,
the number of if the percentage of dropbacks that you are under pressure in is more than 45% over a long period of time, you are in trouble, right? That's the number I'm using arbitrarily as anecdotally. That seems to be a pretty good benchmark of when you're screwed. So Levis at 46.6% this year, he's in trouble. The offensive line is just too bad for that to function. Tommy DeVito right now, 47.4%. So, I think that's the single biggest factor in this game is he's probably going to be under too much pressure to be good.
On the other side, Josh Allen's having a Pro Bowl caliber year. I don't know. Really good year. I hate the Pro Bowl. We hate the Pro Bowl here.
We hate the Pro Bowl.
Almost all pro year. Josh Allen would be talked about as one of the best edge defenders in the league if, there weren't 4 Hall of Fame caliber edges, 4 or 5 Hall of Fame caliber edges there, right? Allen's having a great year.
He's having a year where there have been seasons in PFF's history where the year he's having right now would be the best year of any edge rusher.
Yeah.
Having said that, the season that it currently is, it's ranked 9th in terms of total.
You've got Garrett and Bosa and Watt and Micah and everybody. There's a lot of guys. So Josh Allen against Andre Dillard at left tackle.
Yikes.
And it's another game, Chris Hubbard's at right tackle where Trayvon Walker, he still has those games where he'll grab 4 or 5 pressures. And we talked last week, we complimented him on Monday morning in the loss, showing his power. These are one of those games you need Trayvon Walker to step up. Hey, take advantage of this bad offensive line. They kick him inside over the guard and put him out there. He'll line up against Peter Skoronski here and there. Mm-hmm. By the way, really quick, you asked the other day about moving Peter Skoronski to tackle.
Right.
And I did look it up recently. The Bucs right tackle, Luke Goedeke, who started his career at guard last year, I forgot that his arm length was 32 1/4. Mm-hmm. And he's playing tackle, and he's doing it at a high level. Injured this week, might not play, but Goedeke's grading really well at right tackle, was a very good right tackle at Central Michigan. So my answer is yes. Officially, yes. Move Skoronski to left tackle because Goedeke has shown that he can do it. or Gedeke, whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, there are examples. We've been through this before. There are examples of guys with arms that short succeeding. So give him a shot.
Yes.
Just been referred to as a bald elf in the chat. I think that's a little harsh.
Well, change your shirt. Maybe that'll help.
How does that
don't
affect
know.
being bald or an elf?
Now, if you're wearing green, maybe that would.
Well,
Anyway,
that would make me more of an elf.
I know.
I think the elf thing is a height thing, which is just it's a perspective problem.
It's my fault.
It's your fault,
Yeah,
right?
we need to move you a little closer.
Closer to the camera.
Yeah.
Or just have one of those.
You're our Kyler Murray.
You know I'm taller than
You're
Kyler
our
Murray.
Kyler Murray. We
I am-
need to make perspective changes for you the same way the Cardinals photo op team has to do the same for Kyler.
This is the problem. I am taller than Kyler Murray. I need one of those, the mugshot things where you have the height behind you. We just need a chart on the wall next to me.
I'm just your Wemby.
Here, I'll shuffle this way now.
Well, you look way bigger.
Way bigger. See? Easy.
Oh, I don't like that.
I can fix this whole perspective thing. Not a problem.
There we go. Just raise my seat a little bit. That's the other thing too. You can sitting on a phone book. Does anybody know what a phone book is?
No.
One last thing I just want to highlight here. First off, Levis, he's got to find that balance of completely relying on DeAndre Hopkins and also making sure he's relying on him enough.
Right.
Hopkins, he should be getting his 10 to 15 targets a game. But we've also seen.
Oh, I just ruined the shot.
We ruined all the shot. We ruined all the solo cams. Sorry, Eli, making you work harder here, man. Now we don't get Sam.
Yeah.
We've seen quarterbacks get better when they lose their star receivers, but more often than not, we see quarterback production go up when they have their star receiver. Thank you. How's that headroom? So he's got to find that balance. The other part is, I remember a couple weeks ago I said, Matthew Stafford's playing well, but I didn't realize his stats are terrible. Trevor Lawrence is in that category now. Now, he's coming off a bad game. He was not very good on Sunday. But Trevor Lawrence have you seen his stats?
No. What are we doing? What? Hit me.
9 touchdowns, 6 picks. He's got 9 touchdowns halfway through the season.
That's not great.
89.4 passer rating, 7.1 yards per attempt. But he's got an 80 passing grade. Again, we're watching the film. We're looking at the grades. He's got a big-time throw rate of 5.3%. So he's got, you've done this before, right? When you have 17 big-time throws, but only 9 touchdowns.
Right.
The big-time throws, it's not always a 1-to-1 ratio, but it's like a better proxy for getting into the end zone usually over time. And it just doesn't match up.
Well, he had that crazy run, where his receivers were letting him down week on week.
Right.
Which game was it where he put the ball in the end zone in a
Kansas
receiver's
City.
hands 4 times and none of them were scores?
Week 2.
Yeah. So like that, I mean, he had 5 big-time throws in that game alone and 0 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Like 11.6 big-time throw rate in that game and 0 touchdowns, 5.3 yards per attempt. So he had a run where his numbers were wildly let down by his own receivers. Now, he's also just coming off a bad game. Like, he didn't play well against the 49ers. Nobody did. But generally over the season, I think he's played much better than those stats.
Yeah, I agree. But even going before last week, you could say, man, he only has 9 touchdowns, right? He only had 9 touchdowns halfway through the season, and now we're a little beyond halfway. Just something to keep an eye on here. That we thought that the receiving core would be better. We thought Calvin Ridley would be a little bit more effective. The Jags need to just be more productive, I think, in their passing attack, week to week here. Jags by 7, though, and the Jags continue to be that team. Tough to figure out when they're not going to show up, but I still think they're really good. I think they'll. Where are you going to go? I keep answering first.
You do. People are saying that's why you're worse than me, and the picks.
Because I go first.
Because you go first.
No, I almost always defer to you first. Someone also suggested that I benched Harry because his picks were better than us. That is an ego-driven thing.
I think that would be great.
Talked to my wife. I said, listen, the kid's beating me in picks.
Kid's kicking my ass. I'm going to have to sit him down
football.
for a couple of weeks.
He's been taking his football banning by following the NBA in college basketball now.
Oh, no.
I think you're missing
You just ruined the child.
You're getting too obsessed with sports, kid. We're trying to, taper it down a little
This
bit.
is just the unintended consequences.
Yeah.
You think you're like, I'm going to take away the thing he loves, and instead you're going to push him towards basketball, which for him might be a better thing anyway.
Yeah.
Given that he's going to be 9 foot tall.
Yeah, I know. NBA expert now.
All right, Jacksonville, 7-point favorite. I'm going to go Tennessee.
You're going Tennessee.
Yep.
Still believing in Will Levis.
Not really, but
Our friend Pete Prisco is going to be torn here as a Jags guy and a Will Levis guy.
Oh, he's a Levis guy.
Big Levis guy.
Yeah.
He is Pete's pretty predictable with the quarterbacks he's going to like every year. Hackenberg, Josh Allen, Will Levis. Like, give me the looks the part big arm guy.
All of us have our misses when it comes to the draft. I'm just thankful that one of my misses wasn't Hackenberg.
Oh, we're going back to Hackenberg.
You know? You brought him up. I'm just saying.
All right, we got to get through the show.
I would be upset if that was one of my misses.
Got to get through the show. Arizona Cardinals at the Houston Texans. Texans favored by 5. Remember, it's a new Cardinals team, 1-0 with Kyler Murray
1-0
under center here. But the Texans are hot, man. And C.J. Stroud in that MVP conversation. Mm-hmm. What are you looking for in this game? I'm going to pick up my stylus here.
Do that. Have fun. Good luck. Got it. How Arizona combats this Houston offense, it's been cooking. Like C.J. Stroud playing incredibly, but Bobby Slowick, PFF Bobby, doing an incredible job. Receivers are open. I think Nico Collins is going to be back this week. I think he claims he's going to be playing. So you got a good offensive line playing well. And remember, this isn't, we've mentioned that the line didn't look good on paper, but we did say this offense isn't just quarterback friendly. It's offensive line friendly as well. Like Miami's offense, their offensive line looks way better than it's supposed to on paper. San Francisco's offensive line looks better than it's supposed to on paper. This offense, whenever it goes anywhere, tends to elevate the play of the offensive line as well. So naturally, that group is going to look better than it would on paper in isolation. So the line's looking better. The receivers are looking better. C.J. Stroud looks great. Bobby Slowick doing a great job. This offense is doing a really good job. Arizona's defense still on paper looks horrendous. But it's been feisty. It's been playing above itself basically all the way through the season. There have been guys battling, guys showing up. Rookie Garrett Williams is playing now at corner. Has flashed some impressive ability. There's a few guys now from that defensive side and from this rookie class, honestly, that are starting to look like potential parts of the rebuild going forward. So can they slow down this Houston offense?
What you mentioned about the offensive line and maybe the system elevating the line, I think the most impressive thing about C.J. Stroud, and we'll throw Bobby in there because he's our buddy, but he is the play caller, right? And they have been personnel proof, I'd say, this year. They've had, like, when you looked at that roster coming into the year, I was thinking, hey, if they can get one of those uber possession years out of Robert Woods at wide receiver, that's C.J. Stroud's best friend. Give him a nice, dependable route runner that's going to get open. Woods has been in and out of the lineup and hasn't been the go-to guy. Nico Collins was the guy that was having this incredible season. And then last week, in their toughest game of the season against the Bengals with no Nico Collins, they're still producing. They're still moving the ball. They're still making the fourth quarter comeback and making big plays. So I think that's the most impressive thing when you're breaking down C.J. Stroud and you want to talk about MVP candidacy and all that stuff. I think that would be the element that you use. The stuff that we often make as excuses for quarterbacks that are viable, right? There are viable excuses when you say, hey, this quarterback's missing his top wide receiver for a couple games. That's a factor. Or they've had to reshuffle the offensive line the entire year. That is a factor. Those are legitimate excuses for quarterbacks and for offenses. And Stroud and the Texans have overcome all of those. They didn't miss a beat last week without Nico Collins. They haven't missed a beat at most of the season with the shuffling of the offensive line or not having a Laramie Tunsil, one of the most elite pass protectors in the league. So that's what I think I'm most impressed with there. Other storyline here is Arizona Cardinals have the Texans' first-round pick. It was them, right?
Yeah.
The trade up to go get Will Anderson. Mm-hmm. So the Will Anderson versus Paris Johnson matchup. Remember, there was rumors that Paris Johnson was who Arizona wanted at 3. They traded down to 6 and still took him. And the Texans traded up to 3 to get Will Anderson. So the old draft storylines, that one-on-one matchup, but also this is probably the biggest game of Arizona's season because as a team that's probably looking to next year, they get to help their draft status by getting a better pick with the Texans if they win. Of course, if they lose, they get their own pick that's close to the top anyway.
Right. I think both sides of the ball are interesting in this game. Like we've been talking about how good the offense has been doing for Houston, Bobby doing a great job as offensive coordinator, but the defense shut down the Bengals for giant periods last week, right? The Bengals went down, methodically scored a touchdown, And then Houston's defense absolutely clamped down on them. There was, 5 straight punts and then a long 50-something yard field goal.
Yeah.
Houston's defense has been doing a really good job as well. And you would assume that's D'Amico Ryans, but, there's other people involved there as well. Like, now you've got Kyler Murray to have to deal with. And we saw last week, Kyler Murray looks physically 100%. I mean, and 100% physical Kyler Murray is one of the most difficult quarterbacks in the NFL to contain, right? His ability to run around, to scramble, to make plays with his legs. And then you have to see, how much rust can he knock off in a week. But the Cardinals become a much more challenging team now with Kyler Murray back. Trey McBride is presumably now going to be a featured part of this offense now that he's shown, hey, why don't we actually throw the ball to this guy who looks like a really impact receiving tight end that we drafted. Like, he's now jumped, Zach Ertz, etc. Now you've got Kyler Murray back, Trey McBride playing the way he's playing, Michael Wilson, the rookie, Hollywood Brown. Like, they've got playmakers there.
It is funny how the roster seems nothing against Josh Dobbs, because I thought he played his heart out and did well. But when you have Kyler there and he's able to distribute a little bit better and take advantage of throwing the ball down the field a little bit more.
I mean, he's a better quarterback than Josh Dobbs with all of the same advantages, with all the same strengths.
Right. I was just going to make the point that it makes it look a little bit better.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
it makes the roster feel a little bit better and certainly more competitive.
They went from being competitive every game with Josh Dobbs to now, like, let's just take what we had at Dobbs, the most important player on that side of the ball, and like make it 120%. I mean, that might be the difference between being competitive and actually winning some games.
The one last thing I want to say about this game is from a Houston Texans standpoint. If you were to sum up the first half-ish of the season, you would say the run game was pretty much non-existent. The defense was inconsistent, but they showed flashes, and you just mentioned last week against the Bengals had a really nice stretch and did a nice job. That's if they can get those two things going, right? They've gotten to this point as a 5-4 team. They've gotten here largely by the passing offense. And now, last week they ran the ball really effectively with Devin Singletary and from a volume standpoint. If they can get a little bit, not balance, again, from a 50-50 run-pass split, but just more successful run plays. Fewer second and longs, third and longs for Stroud. Run the ball a little bit more effectively, and then D'Amico Ryans gets his fingerprints on this defense more and more. I mean, the Texans have a chance to be even more dangerous 3, 4, 5 weeks from now than they feel at the moment. And I think that's just impressive what they've done as a whole.
Yep. By the way, somebody in the chat says Zach Ertz is on IR. I know he is. My point is, like, McBride, I think, has jumped him with the performance he's had since he's been given the opportunity.
Oh, yeah. Like, Ertz isn't coming back to be tight end one at any point. All right, man, 5 points. Texans are favored now, just showing how things have changed here.
In Houston.
Houston.
All right, I'm going to go Arizona.
Give me Arizona, because Houston, I mean, they're winning, but they're winning these nice close games, these tight games. All those close games deserve some dramatic music for this public service announcement. I heard you go through this the other day. You did a great job.
Thank you.
It's not a bird. It's not a plane. It's the most revolutionary ball trimmer the world has ever seen. Mm-hmm. Gentlemen, our friends over at Manscaped have been working night and day to bring you a below-the-waist grooming experience like none other with their brand-new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. We're talking about a next-generation trimmer with interchangeable blade heads for whatever shave your mind can imagine. AI is cool, but I think this might be the biggest technological advancement the world has ever seen. Upgrade your grooming game to the Ultrasphere this year by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with code PFF. High tech for low places. That's Manscaped. Now, last year at this time, didn't we have a listener film himself at Thanksgiving dinner telling his family all about Manscaped products?
Yeah, something like that.
I think we should do that again. Like, if you do that again, if you can get us some content of explaining the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra to the family sometime Thanksgiving dinner, maybe during dessert, then maybe we'll get you a PFF Plus for that. Somebody did that legit last year. Every man knows how scary it is, for that when you're going for that close shave down below the belt. That's why we trust Manscaped here. for all our sensitive areas on the PFF NFL podcast. Inside this package, you'll find the star of the show, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. Their 5th-generation trimmer features 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads, a standard one for taking a little off the top, and a new foil blade to go smooth wherever your heart desires. We also have dual LED spotlights to provide contrast on multiple skin tones, 3 length-setting combs, and, oh, did I mention this trimmer's waterproof too? No more wet shaving down there. That's it. Taking it on the go, Manscaped has you covered. This puppy comes with a travel case and even a travel lock feature to avoid those accidental powering and or weird looks in the airport. This right here is on the cutting edge of cutting pubes. Upgrade your ball trimmer, and your life will follow. So get 20% off plus free shipping with the code PFF at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code PFF at manscaped.com. I can promise you've never seen a ball trimmer look like a spaceship. Get yours today from our folks over at Manscaped. Las Vegas Raiders at the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins favored by 13.5. Do they know Antonio Pierce is undefeated?
I think they do. Yeah.
Wow.
I think they know. I think that's the kind of thing that wouldn't escape the man in Vegas.
You think?
Yeah.
Man, it's the unbelievable part of Miami being at home is they've been at home against the worst teams that they play.
Yeah.
And they've been on the road in their most challenging games. And look, I like the way the Raiders are playing right now. But we also have to be realistic. They're 2-0 against Tommy DeVito and the Giants and Zach Wilson and the Jets.
Yes.
The New Yorks.
The New Yorks.
Or New Jerseys. So now going to Miami, where, of course, the most important analytical stat that I have to remind everybody, the Miami Dolphins are averaging 43.5 points in the city of Miami and 22.2 points in all other cities in the world. And they're going to be in Miami.
It's also, I mean, the numbers are even more stark, I think, when it's good teams versus bad teams, right? Like
which, again, I said, like, coincides with in Miami, out of Miami.
Right, I think they're even bigger just in terms of winning record versus losing record.
Yeah. Because they beat the Chargers in L.A. and scored a lot of points against bad teams.
So, the Raiders, you've got Aiden O'Connell. He didn't play well against the Jets. On the other hand, everybody plays badly against the Jets, so it's kind of harsh to hold that against him, I think. The Giants game, I mean, you would assume his baseline is probably somewhere between his performance against the Giants and his performance against the Jets, right? Somewhere in the middle there is the real Aiden O'Connell this season. And that's workable. I mean, they've done a decent job running the ball with Josh Jacobs since they've made the change. I think Aiden O'Connell has shown he can be functional. He's not going to look like he did that first game against the Chargers. We had a ton of turnover-worthy plays, even if he only had 1 interception, and a bunch of sacks. He got sacked 3 times against the Jets, but again, Jets, best pass rush in the NFL, or one of them, certainly top 3. So I think Aiden O'Connell will probably do okay against the Dolphins defense and Vic Fangio. And if they can run the ball, I mean, their offense should function. Like, I don't think we'll see another game where they're scoring 16. It's the thing Salo was saying, right? The race to 20 points wins this game. I think the Raiders can score more than 20 points against Miami.
Against Miami,
yes.
All right. I will say that's interesting for whatever we talk about the run game here. Antonio Pierce saying they're gonna lean on Josh Jacobs. They're gonna run the ball. The statement I said earlier in this show about the Eagles and what I said about the Eagles when they were playing the Dolphins. If you're going to get Josh Jacobs 25 to 30 carries, and a lot of that it's not just game plan oriented. It has to be a game flow issue as well. Like if Miami gets up 14-0, which they do a lot at home, the Raiders aren't going to be able to run the ball 25, 30 times. And then they're going to come back and say, we win when we give Josh Jacobs 25 carries. We're going to do that more often. But if they keep it close, they will grind it out. And Jacobs is that type of guy who will get you 3. He'll get you 4. It'll be 3rd and 1. You convert. And they put together those long drives. And again, I think you can steal a possession from the Dolphins if the game doesn't get out of hand early.
Do you think teams get suckered into that too much, though? Like, oh no, we're 2 touchdowns down. Time to abandon the run game and throw the game script out of the window. We got to keep pace. A lot of ball game left, Steve.
Yeah.
Like we've seen so many times, right, that 2 touchdowns isn't actually that much. If you if you score, even if it takes you 10 minutes, and eats up an entire quarter or whatever, if you get the stop the next drive, you get the ball back, and now you're only down a touchdown with the ball. Like, it's nothing. So I think you're right. Yeah. As soon as you get these teams where as soon as it's like 14-point deficit, it's like, crap, we can never run the ball again. We got to pass. And now you're just playing into the panic and you just amplify it. You just pour gas on the deficit by abandoning the only way you have of actually keeping this game close, which is to execute the offense you want to execute.
The only team I remember offhand who didn't do that, remember the Titans? They had some ridiculous comeback. Maybe it was against Seattle, and they just kept running Derrick Henry.
Right.
And he ran for 30 carries, and he did his usual, like, I'm going to break one in the fourth quarter for 60 yards because you just kept giving it to me. Our guy Brad Spielberger, the other night, somebody went for 2 early, and he was asking the question on Twitter, why are they doing this? Because the scoreboard's this and that, and it's like the second quarter. And I was thinking, I don't think you make – it was the Bills go for 2.
It was the penalty that makes
where
it
they said, we're going to
yard.
go for 2 because we had a penalty that moved the
Right.
ball to the 1. So I think early in the game, you don't play the scoreboard. All you're trying to do is maximize points. You don't make 2-point decisions based off what the score is. You don't make play call decisions based off what the score is, unless it's 28-0 maybe. But the goal is to maximize points. And if you're the Raiders, as we saw the other night, if Aiden O'Connell has to drop back 40 or 50 times and he's going to get sacked 7 or 8 times, you're not going to maximize points probably.
Mm-hmm.
So part of scoring as many points as you can as the Raiders right now probably involves a lot of Josh Jacobs. So in this case, yeah, I get it. You probably have to stick with it. You don't make game flow decisions based off the score that early in the game. You have to just put as many points on the board as possible.
Yeah, I mean, if Miami gets up 14-0, I think the Raiders would be making a mistake to just abandon whatever their script is and try and keep pace. They're not even forget winning. They're not going to hang in the game by doing that. You need to stick with the game plan that you want to execute, which will be, a lot of running the ball, Josh Jacobs, etc. I just think teams are way too quick to look at the deficit and go, oh no, we have to throw everything out the window and pass. You can't keep running the ball from this point. So I think that's the only way the Raiders are hanging in this game is if they can move the ball, even if it's painstakingly on offense.
I've been impressed with the Raiders' defense. I don't know if it's just because my expectations were so low, because they've done pretty well against not so great offenses, but they're going to have to play the Chiefs twice still. They have to play the Dolphins this week. I think it's a great test for this Raiders defense to see if they are capable of hanging with some of the better teams, especially in Miami. I'm not sure that they can. I don't know if they have the horses in the secondary, even though Marcus Peters is, making plays on the ball, and I just don't think him and Amik Robertson and Hobbs, I don't think they have the speed to hang with Miami on the turf in Miami. 13.5 is a lot of points, though.
I wonder what impact Max Crosby can have. Like, the weakest guy on that offensive line for the Dolphins is probably still at right tackle, but Tua averages the fastest average time to throw in the NFL. That's going to really limit the number of plays where Max Crosby can actually make an impact, and obviously he's the best player that the Raiders have on defense.
All right, man, 13.5 points. It's a bunch.
It is.
But that's how Miami's been playing this year. Raiders still playing with that interim head coach juice.
Yeah, I feel like Miami is the type of team that, we've seen they're the type of team that can run up scores on teams that aren't great. So I'm going to go with them covering 2 touchdowns.
From what we're going to learn from these teams, Miami's closing in on Cowboys status of they're beating up the bad teams.
Right.
Let me see you beat the good teams more than once, right, and be consistent. So we're still a couple weeks away from more of those data points for the Dolphins.